Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. This is the Buckeye Report on BuckeyesNow on Sports Illustrated. I'm Brendan Gulick, and we just had a chance to talk with Ryan Day and defensive coordinator Jim Knowles in their weekly press conference here as training camp continues. We are 12 days to kick off as Ohio State gets ready for their big season opener against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish on Saturday, September 3rd. I thought this was maybe the most enlightening press conference we've had all fall, because it feels like there's enough that's been accomplished that these, both of these guys feel really good about, what they've got in, behind them and coming up in front of them here these next couple of weeks. Not necessarily enlightening because there are position battles or things like that. That's not really the case. But I just thought Ryan Day and Jim Knowles spoke with a ton of conviction and positive energy based on the way they have seen this team start to develop. And my gosh, I think Buckeye fans are going to be really, really excited to see the defense this year. Why don't we start with Jim Knowles, because he's gotten a little bit more attention this offseason. To me, he's a stealthy, grizzled, perfectly fit in his role defensive coordinator, and I think there's a lot of excitement around the group that he's coaching this year. If you haven't picked up on it, they're going to play a lot of defensive linemen. They're not necessarily going to play a lot of linebackers and defensive backs. I think he's pretty set on the idea that, hey, we're going to kind of play our starters and maybe have one guy at each spot that we feel we could go to. You're definitely not going to see Ohio State play the depth that it played in the beginning of last year, where it felt like almost every guy on the roster on the defensive side of the ball was in there pretty regularly. So looking forward to seeing this group, because he is expressing a heck of a lot of confidence in what they've done. I specifically asked him about the pride that this group is taking in being silver bullets, that mentality, because the pride necessarily hasn't been lacking the last couple years, but the execution hasn't been great. 3 of the last 4 years, by their own standards, and certainly the last 2 years, Ohio State's defense has not been good enough. 2 years ago, it's probably the reason they didn't win the national championship. Last year, it's the reason they didn't get a chance to play for one. And there is a different, renewed sense of purpose and energy on defense in this building this year. I don't mean any slight toward Kerry Combs whatsoever. I thought Kerry was a hugely valuable piece to Ohio State's program and such a good dude. But Jim Knowles is a guy that feels like he's cut from a little different cloth. There is just an aura, a confidence about the defense right now that is absolutely noticeable. It's palpable inside this building, and I think that's what has people so fired up about what this group could look like this year. By all accounts, the scrimmages have gone well. The injuries in the defensive backfield through camp seem like they're not really a problem at this point, or certainly on the cusp of not being a problem. A couple of the guys that were banged up at corner. So both Ryan Day and Jim Knowles expressed a lot of confidence in the way that group has developed. But specific to the silver bullet mentality, Jim Knowles said, look, we don't really talk about the past, especially because he wasn't here. But he said we discuss on a daily basis being the best, and that silver bullet mentality, that pride of what Ohio State defense has historically shown it's capable of being. It's a big deal to them. It really matters, and you just get the impression that there's a toughness that is a little different this year. He also said that from an overall perspective, he loves how this defense is competing against, in his words, the best offense in the country, and some of the best offensive coaches he said he's ever been around. And again, this is Jim Knowles. He talked about C.J. Stroud in an unbelievably high light. He referred to him as the best quarterback in college he's ever been around, and he specified that included Eli Manning back in 2003. He said, I'm glad he's on my side. He picks things up faster than anybody else I've been around, and he's the real deal. We know that in Columbus, right? We've seen CJ do a lot of pretty impressive things. But to see a guy who is widely considered one of the best defensive coordinators in the country to heap that kind of praise on a quarterback this early in the year is really, really cool. But he said it in the light of, hey, I love the way our guys are competing against, an offense of that caliber, and he has very high expectations of where this Ohio State defense should be this year. So I just thought that was really cool, and if you're looking for specifics from Coach Knowles, we streamed the press conference live here on Buckeyes Now. You can go back to right around the 50-minute mark, 50, of the press conference, and you can see his answers specifically to those couple of questions. Also said that Lathan Ransom, I picked this up, he said he is really decisive. He doesn't really think, he just goes, and it's one of his best qualities. Get the impression Lathan Ransom is making a lot of positive impressions during camp. He also kind of laughed and he said, I'd never really want to install 100% of my defense because you kind of want to keep some things tucked in the way back of your head. And then he laughed. He goes, I have things I'd like to do I haven't even told my coaching staff about because I don't want anybody else to know until it's time to maybe, throw some of those wrinkles in. But he feels like right now that they've installed about 75% of the defense. So that's kind of where Ohio State stands with, now just under 2 weeks to go. The team is continuing to focus mostly on itself this week, and then next week they'll really start to ramp things up specific for Notre Dame's prep. But we're certainly getting to that point where it's about time to turn the page there. Okay, Ryan Day, continues to speak well of his guys, but a couple specific things today. He pointed out that he really, really likes the way both Cade Stover and Mitch Rossi have competed in camp. He just said that those two guys have been really impressive. The tight ends have so much on their plate. And obviously that's a room that, I think doesn't get the same kind of praise as a lot of the other skill position guys. But the Buckeyes feel they've got players in that room that can make a huge difference, and Cade Stover, I think, is at the top of that list. Looking forward to seeing what Stover does this year. On the defensive side of the ball, from maybe somebody who didn't play quite as much last year, Ryan Day said, look, you kind of know the guys, but Teron Vincent in particular has had a really good camp, and we're really hopeful here at Ohio State that they can, that we can lean on him. That's essentially what Ryan Day said. Get the impression that Vincent's going to be a big part of the defensive line rotation this year. Right around the 25-minute mark of that press conference, if you're interested in watching it, I asked Coach Day a couple of questions. First about Brian Hartline. We're going to have a chance to talk with wide receivers this week. That's on Wednesday. Tomorrow, Tuesday night after practice, we'll visit with the defensive backs and defensive backs coaches. But I asked him about Coach Hartline because he's gotten, so much praise, and for good reason. He's recruiting at the highest of levels. He's got a unit that performs way over people's, even wildest dreams. And to have a couple guys go in the first round last year and feel like you didn't lose anything, that's not a slight on Olave and Wilson. They're elite talents. But it's a full-blown just reload. It's not a rebuild in that room. And so I asked Ryan Day essentially what is Brian Hartline's greatest strength? What is his biggest asset to this program? And I'm not sure that he necessarily identified one thing, but he spoke so highly of the bigger picture for a guy like Coach Hartline who, look, he could be in this game for a long time. Ryan Day referenced his ability to recruit, obviously. The fact that he played in the NFL, that resonates with guys. He started off by saying he's a Buckeye, and he played here. And so guys, there's a way that they listen to him because he literally put on that uniform, played on that field, and excelled doing it. There's a level of respect there and a way that, his guys in particular identify with him. It was a good answer, I thought, but maybe in that I'm not sure Ryan Day knows how to verbalize just how important Brian Hartline is to this program. Can't wait to visit with him on Wednesday. I'm looking forward to seeing his perspective on the progress that this group has made during training camp. And then I also asked Ryan Day about Kyle Mccord, just simply to say, hey, look, you really hope and expect and anticipate that C.J. Stroud is going to be the guy that's out there the vast majority of snaps this year. But I wanted to understand where Ryan Day's thoughts were around, hey, if Kyle has to go in a really meaningful situation, what's your confidence level in his development and in the way that he has grown in this past off season, because he knew he wasn't going to be the starting quarterback this year. And I thought Ryan did a pretty good job of saying, look, this kid has made serious progress. I would expect that Kyle's going to be the front runner for the starting job next year. I really think Kyle Mccord has an NFL future. I want to see what kind of college tape he can get, and I hope that it's here at Ohio State, because I think he's got supreme talent. But right now, he's pretty clearly the number 2 backup quarterback. I don't think there's really a controversy around that. Devin Brown is very talented, but he's the number 3 guy. Kyle's the number 2 guy. And I thought Ryan was pretty complimentary of Kyle's progress, and essentially said, look, he was really, really close to being a champion in our scrimmage. He's taken a lot of great steps. His body continues to evolve. I mean, you look at him now, and there's a substantial difference in his physical development from where he was when he first came in to where he is now. And, it's hard to put somebody on the same exact level playing field as CJ, because he was a Heisman finalist last year. That's not to say that somebody else isn't capable of performing that way if they've got the other weapons around them on offense. But there was, I thought, considerable confidence expressed there from Ryan in Kyle's ability to step in and feel like, hey, if I'm one play away, I can't think about it in Ryan Day's words. He goes, I can't tell Kyle, you're the backup quarterback and you might play a few times. You got to prepare like the second play of the Notre Dame game, you're going to be in there, because you just never know. And that's a really hard thing to do, but he said he feels Kyle's done a really good job of embracing that mentality. And, his mental game has been really strong this year. He's found ways to get better watching film. So, as a Buckeye fan, I'm sure you're watching this hoping and feeling like, look, CJ's our guy. And we're going to go as far as the offense takes us with CJ leading things. But I think Ryan Day gave Kyle Mccord a nice boost here publicly and saying, look, if he has to get in there, we don't expect this offense to skip a beat. So I thought that was pretty important too. Those were my biggest takeaways from Ryan. I mean, a lot of the other stuff I thought was solid, but stuff that we've heard iterations of from time to time. So. That's the latest here from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Again, tomorrow is the first day of class for Ohio State students, and so we're going to finally start to get on a slightly different schedule. There's no more 11:30 a.m. Media availability after morning practices. That part's going to be done. Right now it's time to start focusing on the classroom part of being the student athlete. So these guys will jump in class starting on tomorrow. And we'll talk with them after practice tomorrow, and same thing on Wednesday. And then next week we'll get into our normal weekly routine of getting opportunities on Tuesdays and Wednesdays to talk with players and coaches. So it's awesome that this time of year is finally here, and looking forward to bringing you all the latest from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Okay, we'll have all the latest for you over on BuckeyesNow.com, so please stay locked and loaded over there. Certainly on our YouTube channel, we're going to try to bring you as much video content as we can throughout the course of the season as well. This is the Buckeye Report. I'm Brendan Gulick. We'll see you again real soon here in Columbus.